It's time for episode 22 of my great movie series, and on this episode, a very special movie to me because I've taught it a lot and I've come to really appreciate over the years after studying it. It's one by the master, Alfred Hitchcock. It's Rear Window. Coming up next. Rear Window is a 1954 movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock. It stars Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. And Jimmy Stewart plays a professional photographer who has broken his leg and is thus lame at home on the mend. He has nothing to do all day but sit and watch people outside his apartment window. He's in an apartment complex which has a courtyard outside and then apartment buildings all around him. And he can see into the windows of his neighbors. At some point in the movie, Grace Kelly comes in, his girlfriend. She wants to marry him. She wants to settle down with him. Although he's an older man with a beautiful younger blonde woman, which is an Alfred Hitchcock staple, he's kind of a jerk to her. And he says to her, well, you can't go with me around the world because I'm a photographer. I go to very dangerous places. You just like being a fashionable lady in New York City. So while their relationship is at odds during a good portion of this movie, he looks outside of his window and laughs at his neighbors, enjoys watching them be silly and funny. But then he sees one of his neighbors and he gets the suspicion that this neighbor has in fact killed his wife. Now this character has little evidence to go on, evidence that wouldn't hold up in a court of law. And one of his buddies, a police officer, comes over and tells him just that. But this character insists that the neighbor has killed his wife. So as the movie goes on, you see him get other people involved, namely his girlfriend, the Grace Kelly character, in this possible murder. Now, since this is an Alfred Hitchcock movie, the suspense builds and builds slowly over the course of the movie. And viewers, in the first time watching this, will not know exactly who's right and who's wrong. The movie hits on so many great themes from the 1950s. One of them being surveillance and paranoia. Being worried about your neighbors. Remember, this is the time of the Cold War where you might suspect that your neighbors are communists or spies. And then in this movie, you're suspicious of the neighbor, but you also realize that the Jimmy Stewart character is a little too paranoid. Another idea in this movie I find really fascinating, and I suggest that you watch it this way, is that the Jimmy Stewart character is looking out of his window and he's basically a movie viewer or movie goer. He's looking at several screens and he's getting something out of watching these screens. What I mean by that is that each window that he looks into is an individual movie screen, and each one has its own story that reflects onto his life. In fact, if you look at all the windows he's looking into, each of them tell him something about his relationship with his girlfriend. And in fact, in this movie, he gets what he wants. That is, the neighbor he suspects as murdering his wife, well, the Jimmy Stewart character kind of acts that way, at least very hostile towards Grace Kelly. I'm not saying the Jimmy Stewart character is a murderer or a would-be murderer. There are hints of him being annoyed, frustrated, and antagonistic towards his girlfriend. And when he looks over across the way at the neighbor who might have killed his wife, that might be him projecting his wants and desires onto a scene, a movie screen across the way. This is one of Alfred Hitchcock's main points. We as movie viewers project our wants and desires onto movies, and movies can give us what we want, namely violence and murder. Is that what we should really want? Alfred Hitchcock is asking us that very question. Now, this movie is famous for a lot of reasons. One is that it has a lot of formalistic experiments and constriction. The movie is shot almost solely in one apartment building. It almost never cuts to any location outside that apartment building. And so you're constantly seeing everything from the perspective of the Jimmy Stewart character looking out his own rear window. Another experiment is that this movie has no diegetic music. All the music and sound in this movie comes from inside the movie world. That is, except for the very beginning and the very ending. And so you get actually the music in this movie coming from one of the apartment buildings, and the music is being written by one of the characters across the way. And the love theme of Rear Window is being composed as it goes, and the Grace Kelly character notices that. The movie was actually not shot on location. The sets were entirely built from scratch. I find that fascinating. Alfred Hitchcock was in control of every aspect of his set. It looks exactly like he wants it to be. It's laid out exactly as he desired. A personal confession, I had to watch this movie 3 times before I really appreciated it. It's not a movie that ever has captured my heart entirely. However, in thinking about this movie, I have found this to be a wonder world of rich possibilities. By that, I mean I think each shot in this movie is perfectly placed. It has dozens of possibilities. This movie has lots of interpretive possibilities. So I tried to watch this when I was young. I didn't understand it at all. It's only when I came to it at middle age, having a little bit of education and being a better movie watcher, paying good attention, where I found this movie to be utterly fascinating. And I recommend this to you. If you're not a lover of this movie at all, go back and watch it carefully and study it. Read about it, read criticism about it, because this movie gets better as you look at it more carefully. And maybe one day I'll teach a class on this online or go through this movie shot by shot with you. I'd love to do that. I do think this is one of the greatest movies ever made, but it took me a while to figure that out. What do you think of Rear Window? Please tell me in the comments. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't and watch my other videos. I really appreciate you interacting with this channel. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.